Hi Sophie, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's a thrill to have you here. So you are a graphic designer.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, you and I actually know each other from a project that I did a long time ago now, probably over 10 years ago we started that, which was the Doctor Who Fan Orchestra.
Long live the Doctor Who Fan Orchestra.
I know. It was a joy, wasn't it? I think, did you play the clarinet?
I did, well remembered, yes.
Yeah, do you still play?
Not as much as I used to. I wish I had
No.
It's always, you're working all the time and you don't really have the
Absolutely,
time to focus on that anymore. But I still have the clarinet, I just haven't played it in a long time.
Yeah. We got my clarinet out the other day to have a look at it, and it hasn't been touched for years, and Ben was interested in having a go on it, but he was sort of puffing his cheeks out and not getting a sound out of it, so it was quite funny.
I seem to remember, didn't we, didn't Murray Gold actually see what we were all doing? And
he did, yeah.
I think he used to comment on it, didn't he, quite a lot, which was so lovely.
He did, yeah. It was lovely, yeah, to have his kind of blessing.
Yeah,
were.
totally.
Yeah.
Always
but anyway, so I'm guessing, would you call yourself a lifelong fan of the show?
Oh, pretty much, yeah. Do you know what? When Doctor Who came back in 2005, I was that prime target audience. I was only 9 years old.
Right.
And I remember my mum actually introduced me to the show because she was a fan. She used to watch Tom Baker and Elizabeth Sladen back in the day. So she was very excited to see it coming back. And I, at the time, I don't think I knew what Doctor Who was at all. But I sat down with my mum to watch it, and then just ever since then, I've been completely in love with the show, absolutely obsessed with it from the get-go.
And your journey has now actually led to you being a part of the show, like you're working on it. That must feel like a dream come true.
It's such a strange full circle moment for me. I'm still like pinching myself now. I've been doing it for about 2 years, but it's so surreal to actually be walking around, Bad Wolf Studios, and you're just walking down the corridor and then Russell passes you in the corridor and you're like, oh, you're right, Russell. You just get a script in your email inbox. You're like, oh, this is completely normal.
Wow. Yeah, it must be incredible.
It's been a journey. It's been such a journey to get actually on the show from, actually going into film and TV work. I was definitely inspired by shows like Doctor Who to actually figure out, what's it like to actually make these kind of shows? What kind of roles can you do behind the scenes? And it was shows like Doctor Who Confidential that really got me interested in, TV and film production, and sort of worming my way in somehow to the industry is sort of because of shows like this.
Yeah, I think shows like Unleashed and Confidential are so important because it's sort of, you get to see how the sausage is made, as it were. And I think that inspires a lot of people. Like, when I was younger, I always used to love the the DVD extras that you used to get on films and shows and stuff. It's just fascinating, isn't it? Sort of seeing what goes into it.
100%. And it's such an army behind these shows as well. It could be hundreds of people all doing their own very specific areas, but it all comes together in the end. It's a lovely thing to be a part of the new series. It's been so exciting to just be behind the scenes and seeing how everything's working. It's like fascinating walking around and, watching everyone do their individual jobs. It's really eye-opening.
Yeah, must be. So how did your journey lead you to where you are, like from when you started your graphic design work?
Oh, I had such a long sort of roundabout way of getting into the industry, and like everyone's got their own different ways of doing it. I don't think there's sort of one set path into the industry as such, but way back in college, I was really interested in art and design. I was doing photography as well. I was interested in design and creativity. And I also did a media studies course, and that sort of turned me on to being really fascinated with film and TV production and, all of the processes that go behind it. But then I was struggling for ages to figure out, okay, how could I sort of combine the two almost? Because I didn't really want to lose the art and design side of what I'm doing, because I really loved that. But also I wanted to figure out a way to try and combine it with film and TV. So I just had to try and find the right role. And it took me a while. I actually got to the end of my A-levels and I still couldn't really figure out what was the next step for me. So then I took an extra year at college and I did a foundation art and design course, just so I could, take a step back and actually do my research properly. I was looking into a lot of universities and I was looking at, video production courses, media production. You can do all sorts of courses like that, but they just seemed a little bit too generic for me, and I couldn't figure out, what I was missing from, looking at these courses. But actually, during my foundation year, I stumbled upon the TV and film set design course, which is at the University of South Wales in Cardiff. And that was like a light bulb moment going off in my head, because there is an art department in film and TV. And I'm like, that is exactly what I was searching for, is a whole department is just, completely dedicated to design for these productions. So I just thought that is absolutely perfect. I'm going to apply for that. Luckily got in, did the 3 years on the course. And then this is it gets even more sort of roundabout from there, because the course I was on, I was learning how to draw sets, basically. So, we do technical drawings for construction to build these sets. So I was learning how to do that for 3 years. I wasn't really doing graphic design. It was more like model making and sort of like architecture, interior design. You're sort of learning all of those skills. And the minute I got out of university, I was really lucky. They had links with Netflix. And at the time, they were just prepping the first series of Sex Education. So I got onto that as a trainee. And then from there, I was helping the graphic designer, and just realised I kind of really enjoyed doing that, actually. And maybe I'm interested in graphics. So I jumped from job to job after that. It was really great. The university sort of gave me this amazing platform to just go off and start working immediately. And I haven't really stopped, to be honest, since then. Just been getting experience on different shows, trying to figure out what sort of area that I liked the most, because an amazing thing about the art department as well is that there are so many different roles to do. You can be in props, so you're like sourcing props or buying props. You'll go into prop houses where you can hire out props. You can be in set decks, so you're actually decorating the spaces, or you can be drafting, which is, what I was learning to begin with. And after a while, I think I just realised there was something about graphics for me that was just the best sort of combination of everything that I liked. So I made a bit of a transition into the graphic design role. And, just by luck and chance, really, I was in the right place at the right time for when they were looking for an assistant graphic designer to come on Doctor Who. And I was like, well, I've been building experience up until now, and I was so thrilled to actually get on it. It's, I didn't go into the industry thinking, I'm going to work on Doctor Who. But there was always that thing in the back of my head, like, that would be really nice if I could.
Of course, yeah. Your role then in graphic design, what kind of things sort of day to day are you working on?
Well, day to day, like usually I'll get the script come through, and then I have to do what's called a script breakdown. So I'm going through every single scene and trying to figure out if there are any graphics needed, first of all. And then I do these big spreadsheets, trying to put everything into order. And then we'll get a shooting breakdown as well. So we'll get the shooting order come through. We'll know which scenes are being filmed when. So then I have a priority list of, this graphic needs to be done first. And then it's all about researching. You'll be having talks with a production designer. That's what I do quite a lot. We'd have weekly meetings with Phil, the production designer, just showing our designs, having conversations. We'll be having conversations with a set decorator as well, just making sure we're all sort of on the same page about what we're doing with a design in a particular episode. Mm-hmm. And then basically my job for the rest of it is just making sure those designs are done and they're on set on time for filming. Yeah. That's kind of it. For the rest of the job then it's just that constant cycle of just keeping up with production, essentially.
Yeah. So it's things like, say there needs to be a newspaper in a scene or a poster on the wall or a business card, things like that, is it?
Yeah, 100%. It'll be a lot of things that you don't necessarily notice as well. We've done carpets and, the wallpaper designs. Yeah. If there's anything really bespoke and specific, I think we did a floor for Rogue, actually. There was a custom floor printed for that, for one of the ballrooms. So things that you'll never notice in a million years, because I guess sometimes the whole point of the art department in a way is when you're sitting down as a viewer, it's supposed to feel immersive and feel realistic. And you're not supposed to be sitting there questioning, that floor doesn't look right, that newspaper's not right.
I think that's true of every department, isn't it? Everyone's role is to be invisible in a way and just create this whole
immersive world that's hopefully believable.
Yeah. So you've worked on Doctor Who for Series 14 and for the Tennant specials, is that right?
Yep, that is correct.
In those episodes that you've worked on, have you got a favourite or several favourites, sort of things that you've created?
Oh, do you know what? I really loved the Beatles episode because I'm a big fan of the Beatles. So when I got that through, I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to be great. And I kind of love doing period work as well. I'm quite a big fan of that. So getting into the 60s world was really fun. And actually, I've got a funny story about the billboard that's towards the end of the episode.
Oh,
it
yes.
says Chris Waits and the Carolers. I couldn't believe this because Radio Times wrote an article about it. And I read through the article and I was like, oh my gosh, they're writing about my work. And then they put in a funny line about, oh, Russell T Davies, putting in all of these Easter eggs. And actually, it's like, it's the art department doing that. Russell didn't design that. That was funny. But yeah, that was such a lovely episode just to, sink your teeth into. It's always fun when you get like a nice theme like that. And also, actually, the giggle was very much the same for me. I really loved getting into we did 1920s. The toy maker's shop was very creepy. I'd be walking in there and Set Deck bought like these most amazing toys that you could ever see. Like they were so creepy. You genuinely thought you were sort of walking into a bit of a haunted set in a way, because some of these were just slightly off, in some ways, which is a good thing for putting the toy maker space together, because he was a very creepy character and was supposed to be off-putting and quite unsettling. So actually when you're walking into that space and it feels the same, it's like, oh, that's what design's all about, really, is helping to tell that story. So Giggle was a big favourite of mine as well. I got to do toy packaging for the shop, which you barely saw all of this stuff, but just knowing it's in there is such a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, the puppet theatre as well in the Giggle, that was one of mine, which is to this day probably like the favourite design that I've ever made, because of the scale of it and the sort of importance of that scene as well. I was so happy with that.
Oh, that's an amazing thing to have done. Yeah, that's really striking, isn't it? Amazing.
Yeah, 100%. It's such a nice project to work on that, because it took a couple of weeks to get the design kind of nailed down. And then actually printing it as well to scale was like the biggest graphic that I'd had to print. Usually we do very small things, but actually that was like the size of the studio. It was massive.
So from being a fan to working on the show, how has it changed your relationship to the show? Obviously, I would imagine quite a lot.
Do you know what? I don't think it has. I don't think it has at all. I've worked on a lot of other TV shows and films, and I'll sit down to watch them and I'll just be as excited as I will be watching things that I haven't worked on. And actually a big part of that is like, when you're in the art department, you're in this very specific bubble, you're dealing with these very specific problems. And actually, I don't get to see a lot of what else goes on. So I don't really get to see them filming, because often with the art department, we're working ahead of them. We have to make sure the sets are ready for, when the film crew gets there. So I very rarely see a lot of the action that goes on around. So actually getting to sit down and watch it it's like a new experience in a way, even though I know what's going to happen. It's just nice to sit down and everything's been put together. The VFX work's been done. The sets have been all put together. The way they're directing it, the sound, everything I haven't seen, I haven't been a part of. So it's still a new experience. Yeah, still a new experience.
So I guess the only difference being that you get the scripts come in, and so you've read the script and you know what's coming in a way. But it must be interesting then seeing it almost from page to screen.
Yeah, totally.
And also knowing that you're a part of that journey. Yeah.
Everyone's such a little cog in such a big machine, but it's so lovely to then sit down and watch these episodes, because you get to see everyone's hard work has sort of come together in such a beautiful way.
And presumably you're still working on series 2. I mean, you probably can't tell us anything at all, but
I can't tell you anything. Lips are sealed.
You can't tell us anything.
No.
But you are working on it and you are having fun.
Yeah, it's been the best, honestly. I can't say anything negative about it at all. It's just been me running around the studio. It's been like, oh my God, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. If anyone listening is interested in getting into that sort of industry, have you got any tips for them?
Well, for the art department, I think you just have to do your research beforehand and try and figure out if there's an area that you're particularly interested in, because it's so vast. There's so many different areas that you can go into. It's just worth figuring out what area you might be most interested in. And then from there, it's all about networking. It really is. It's an industry where you need to know people, and that's the hardest thing to figure out at the start of your career, because you won't know anybody. For me, for example, I knew nobody who worked in film and TV, nobody at all. I had no connections, so I felt like in a way I had to go to university just to get on that first step. That might not be for everybody, but I'd recommend university for sure, because that that path worked for me. But there's always alternatives as well. There's always other ways to get into the industry, and it is mostly down to networking. You just have to get talking to people and trying to form those contacts. And often you have to become a bit of a sleuth, maybe look through the credits of a TV show or a film that you like, look at those names under art department and be like, okay, I'm going to try and find these people, see if they've put their contact details anywhere. Yeah, you do have to just try and talk to as many people as possible and hope that they remember you when you're starting out. It's difficult. It is difficult when you start, but it does get easier once you're in.
So you've talked about some of your favourite things you've done for the show. Is there something that sticks out as something that was a real challenge, that was really difficult to achieve?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm trying to go through all the different episodes now. To be honest, we've been such a good team in graphics. I think that's something that's always worth shouting to the rooftops about. It has been a challenge. There's always days and weeks where you don't feel like you're on top of the schedule, or things are getting away from you a little bit. But actually, the graphic design department, we've just been such a close-knit team that we've been really able to support each other. And that's been so lovely to be a part of as well, because often you might get on productions that are an absolute mess, or they're really unorganized, or and that's all kind of out of your control, really. It's all scheduling conflicts, and maybe scripts aren't delivered on time and that sort of thing. But to be honest, I had a great experience with the specials and the series 14 as well, or I should probably call it series 1, shouldn't I? But I always call it series 14. I can't get used to that numbering system.
I know what you mean, yeah.
But yeah, it's making Doctor Who, I think, is probably one of the most difficult TV shows to make, just because of the sheer ambition of it. I've been on other TV shows where you've got a set theme. It's a period drama. It's a police, crime show. Every episode's kind of the same. Whereas with Doctor Who, that is not the case. We're making like a brand new project every 4 or 5 weeks or so. So that is a challenge in itself, just to keep on top of it. But once you get into the rhythm, you just kind of go in step with the production, and it gets easier. It's quite a overwhelming thing at first when you're on the production, like, oh gosh, we've got so much to do. But you do quickly fall in step, which is nice. It's a relief.
Has it been interesting, because they completed filming for series 1 so long ago, and it's only just finished airing now? Like, has it been interesting seeing the wider sort of fan community's reactions?
Yeah, 100%. It's been interesting. Do you know what? I've been thinking about this as well. Like, not every episode is going to work for people, and that's absolutely fine. It doesn't, I don't think many shows out there are like hit after hit after hit episode. That's just, there's very few rare TV shows that manage to achieve that. And I liked every single episode. I don't think there was a dud in there, but I read the criticisms and I understand the criticisms, like, totally. I see all of that, and there's valid points being made, but also it might just take taking a step back and realizing, oh, okay, maybe this episode just isn't for me. I think there's a lot of people out there who just want to see these kind of shows fail and quite enjoy sort of bashing shows over the head and being like, oh, they did this wrong, blah blah blah. And you know what, if I don't like something, I'll just turn over. I'm not going to spend loads of time sort of debating it. I will just switch over.
Absolutely.
And with Doctor Who, I've never done that. I've never switched off from it. No matter what, there's been eras of the show that fans have completely, hated. And I've watched it all, and I've thought it was there's some episodes that I'm like, I didn't mind that. And there's some episodes that I thought, oh, that was brilliant. But it's always been a constant for me. I'm never sort of not going to watch it. So, it just comes with sort of loving the show that much. You take the weird episodes and the episodes that are a bit like, oh, that was okay. Just because you enjoy the show as a concept in its whole totality, I see a lot of that criticism. I'm like, I get it. It's hard for me because I worked on it, and I'm like, I thought every episode was great.
Yeah, I think it's been well received broadly. I definitely loved it. It had its ups and downs, but it was definitely really enjoyable. And just the fact that I just can't get over the fact that you, as a fan, and also I think there are actually a lot of people who work on it probably do come from a fan background in a way, even like Russell and so on, like, he brought the show back as a fan. But to suddenly find yourself part of that, it's got a 60-year history, and the things that you've worked on are now set in history and will be watched for decades to come. That must feel just so surreal.
It's so special. I don't think there's not many other TV shows out there that are like this. Like you say, with the history of the show, I think when you're going in as a fan, you totally understand that. And like, this is a really precious legacy, and we've got to look after it as much as we can. And actually, there's a couple of people on the production who are definitely fans. And like, we've all sort of bounded together and like, yeah, you like the show, don't you? Yes. And it comes in handy. It really does. So we had the memory TARDIS, obviously, in episode 7 and 8, which is full of Easter eggs. And do you know what? There was when we were organising that set, I think they got into, maybe it was the BBC archives or something, because they had a lot of props sort of laid out on tables. It might have come from the Doctor Who experience as well, because I know all of that stuff, I assume, went into storage once that place closed. And maybe we managed to get it all out again. But it was such a nice project for us in graphics, because if there was anything that we couldn't find, and again, you sort of need a knowledge of a fan to know that, okay, what's missing here, then we just make it. And that was such a joy. I was making I can't remember which episode it's from, but Sylvester McCoy's calling card, Seventh Doctor's calling card. I made that just from looking at screenshots of the episode and thinking, that would be a really nice Easter egg to put in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
I did Rose Tyler's missing posters as well from the first series.
Oh God, yes. And you had to recreate those as well.
Yeah, because we couldn't find them in all the props. So we were like, let's just make them. But that was just suggestions from us, because we're such nerds about the show. I was like, this would be really cool. Let's put this in there.
Yeah.
So I had a blast.
So did you have to find the same photo of Billie Piper to use?
Yes. Yeah. I had to try and find a high-res screenshot of that poster to then try and crop out that photo and then match the fonts as well. So it was like a whole new version.
That's amazing.
But there's a lot of little recreations like that, which is where, when you're a fan, so I just know that off the top of my head. I can just bring that straight to the table. And
Absolutely.
That was the same with, say, the billboard, the Chris Waits billboard. I just put that in there because it's a 60s episode. You've got to reference 60s Doctor Who in the 60s episode. You can't not do that. So
exactly, yeah.
I just do that for pure fan pleasure, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I know people love it as well. I think it's important when you're doing things like that. It's, the show's got such a history. Use it, bring it back in, maybe subtle ways, maybe not so subtle ways, but it's that celebration of the legacy, which is so nice to just keep on doing that, keep on remembering it, because it's important to do that. And then, brings people along for the ride as well, makes people think, maybe I'll go back and revisit those old episodes.
Absolutely. It sounds like you're having a brilliant time.
It's been, honestly, I'm pinching myself. I really am. It sort of came about in an unexpected way as well. It might be interesting to mention. So I'm a part of this group that's called the Graphics Union, and what they do is sort of bring together people who work in graphic design for film and TV. It's just a community. It's a fabulous group of people who are doing sort of workshops and tutorials, and we're sharing knowledge with each other, but also we're sharing jobs with each other. So I saw it through a job advertisement, which was as simple as that, really. This graphic designer called Erica, she posted a job advert to the union, and I just saw it and I applied for it. And, there might have been a couple of other people involved in that application as well, but I was really lucky to have gotten it. And I think I probably might have begged in my application and probably put the steelbooks into my portfolio as well, being like, look, I'm a fan. Please have me. Please.
Oh, because you did some work on the steelbooks, didn't you?
Yeah, that's been amazing as well. I did that way before I started doing the graphic design stuff. I always did illustration on the side anyway. Do you know what? I can't really remember now how I got picked up for it. I think it might have been through, I did some illustrations for this book called The Women Who Lived, which was a fabulous little book about all of the women in Doctor Who. So I did that, and then I think I might have been recommended from that to the team at the BBC who do all of the steelbooks. And then I got on for series 4, and then I did 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I did Jodie's 2022 specials, and I've done the 60th anniversary one as well. So it's just been a really nice sort of project to keep coming back to, and it's just a delight that they keep asking me to come back, really. I would have been happy doing the one, but they were like, oh, come back for more. Like, yes, of course I will.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and they seem to have gone down really well as well. I always get really sort of overwhelmed by the reaction to them. Every time the steelbooks came out, I just had this sort of flood of people complimenting the work, which is like the best thing for me, because you can always worry about, oh, am I doing this properly? Especially when you're designing on your own, which is often the case. You've sort of got nobody to bounce things back with except for the BBC. So it's nice then for the fans to get their reactions, and 99% of the time.
And you know how critical they can be.
So. Yes.
Yeah, so you're doing something right.
yeah, it's good validation.
Absolutely. Was there anything else that you wanted to share?
I just hope that people have enjoyed it, really. And, the design work behind it has just been so special. The art department works so incredibly hard. There's so many details as well that you don't see, and I find that incredible in itself. It might just be sort of the way they film an episode sometimes, or maybe the scenes are quite short. I think this happened in Boom, actually. We had this amazing set, and it was an outdoors camp, and actually they showed it in Unleashed, so it's worth watching the Unleashed episode for Boom. But in the actual episode, you barely see it. It was for one scene, I think. I think it was like a wide sort of panning shot looking in, and then maybe a little close-up. But so many details on that set. There was like a whole canteen that you could walk into. There were like bedrooms for the characters, and we'd sort of thought about each character and what they would have in their bedrooms. And then, it's really frustrating for me to then be like, oh, they never shot it. But, it's part and parcel sometimes of working into TV and film. Like, not everything is going to be seen. And you just have to be okay with that, even though it's a bit heartbreaking for me, especially when you know how hard people work on it.
Yeah, but it must also, on some level, go into the performance as well. Like, even if the camera doesn't show it, the actors have immersed themselves in it, and it just helps them feel in the world, doesn't it? So
I think that's half of the reason why we put so much detail into it, is so that, not just the actors as well, but the director or the camera crew, when they walk in, it's like, they're going to be really sort of galvanized to do the best work that they can, because, we've given them this richly detailed space. And often that's quite nice for like improvisation as well. They might come up with an idea on the spot because they've been given all of this, all of these resources for them to use. So it's always worth doing, even if it doesn't get seen in the end. And thank God for Unleashed, honestly. Thank God for Unleashed, because I loved watching that every week, because they really go into these sort of niche areas. I love what Stefan's doing with them. He goes to different crew members and does work experience with them every week and sort of explains different departments. And I thought that's so fantastic, because that's going to educate people, inspire people, and help people get into the industry. So, yeah. Presumably
you grew up watching Confidential. And now you followed in their footsteps.
Yeah.
Hopefully there'll be kids watching Unleashed now who will go on and follow in the same footsteps.
I hope so. I don't think there's many. Yeah. I mean, they do a lot of behind the scenes features for films and whatnot, but for TV shows, there isn't as much that I've seen nowadays, especially when it's all on streaming. behind the scenes content seems to have gone down.
Exactly.
So at least with Doctor Who, they've brought back this sort of dedicated resource where you can see what's going on behind the scenes for every single episode. I think that's really special, and I hope they continue it.
Definitely. Well, Sophie, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me.